homeless service providers, concerned citizens, and people who've experienced homelessness who are willing to share their stories about how housing ends homelessness and transforms lives. Our efforts have touched the hearts and minds of our elected officials and have proven very effective. This kind of advocacy work isn't easy. To get approval for homeless housing in Heritage Square South, we had a 10-month campaign. We gathered over 1,000 letters and petitions. We met with our elected officials. We had as many as 100 people show up to city council meetings. We held prayer vigils, and some of us even slept overnight on the site to be in solidarity with our homeless neighbors. I can tell you from personal experience, it's not fun sleeping on the sidewalk. But at least I had a mat to sleep on. There were 2 women not far from me who didn't have a mat to sleep on. So I gave them mine. But I wish I could have given them a place to sleep that night. I have a passionate concern about this issue because I have friends who are homeless or experience homelessness. In fact, a formerly homeless man sleeps in our back house, lives in our back house, and we are grateful to have him as our friend. There's a woman I've known for 15 years, not in this city, in Torrance, who's in a wheelchair, legally blind, and I have been trying my best to get her housed. It's been a frustrating, heartbreaking experience. And I'm appalled that this woman, 43 years old, a mother with a grown daughter, still has not been housed. She calls me every day and calls me her daughter in Christ. That's how close we are. So, the Greater Pasadena Affordable Housing Group works with groups like Everyone In and Faith Partnership to End Homelessness to do educational work around homelessness. We participate in town halls like this, and we've also organized 3 homeless to house bus tours last year. Around 30 people took part in each tour and visited Marv's Place, which houses 19 homeless families here in our city, and Teague Terrace in Eagle Rock, which houses over 60 people with special needs. Teague Terrace not only houses homeless people, it has solar panels and is LEED certified for its green architecture. Not unusual with affordable and homeless housing, by the way. Both developments are stellar examples of how permanent supportive housing works. Most who took the bus tour were concerned citizens who are now able to advocate effectively since they've seen for themselves that supportive housing works. And some who took part in these tours were people of influence, including the mayor of Alhambra and Arcadia and candidates for office who are now pushing for homeless housing in their cities. So if you want to end homelessness in Pasadena, please join us in our advocacy and educational work. Sign a petition, send a letter to our city council, or come to a city council meeting and speak out. And also, be sure to thank our mayor and our city council members for all the great work that they've already done. And then urge them to do a little bit more. If you're a person of faith or a person of conscience, come to our weekly vigils. We meet every Monday that the city council is in session in front of the city-owned YWCA in the Civic Center, right across from the Baptist Church, First Baptist Church. This Y is a historic landmark designed by famed architect Julie Morgan that's been vacant for over 20 years, and our mayor was the first to advocate that this site should be used for homeless housing. We hold up a banner that says, "House our homeless neighbors and low-income families at our Civic Center." And it's inspiring to see homeless people and people like my lawyer friend Sonia holding up this banner together. After our demonstration, we go to the bust of Mac and Jackie Robinson in front of City Hall for a time of reflection and prayer. And I always like to point out that when Jackie Robinson retired from baseball, he went to Harlem and, among other things, started Affordable Housing Construction Company. So I know he'd be happy to see that we're thinking of using that site around his monument for that purpose, and so would Julia Morgan. This time when we get together for prayer and reflection has become the spiritual high point of my week. We have religious leaders. Michael was here on one of those vigils, Michael over there. And we have people who've experienced homelessness. We're going to have kids from one of our local schools. And we're all gathered together to pray that we can end homelessness in our city. And I know that God answers prayer.
Right. Yeah.
And God has been answering our prayers.
Amen.
So, we'd also love for you to join our homeless housing subcommittee. We meet every 2 weeks on a Thursday at lunchtime. We've been meeting at Centennial Place, which has 144 people who've been formerly homeless. And they're excited about what we're doing. So we want to bring everybody on board. And you're welcome to join us to see me afterwards. And our team is exploring various ways that we could make a difference, including motel conversion, which is a policy that our city passed, an excellent policy. We believe it's possible to end homelessness. We know this is a national as well as a local crisis. We're grateful that our governor has made this a priority, and we hope this will have an impact locally. And I'm praying and hoping we can get a president in office who will also take this seriously.
Amen.
Meanwhile, we need to hold our local officials accountable for doing everything they can to end homelessness. That means supporting affordable and supportive housing at the Civic Center and on city-owned land. And also, we want to see it in every part of our city. Every part of our city. The solution to our homeless crisis is right here. All of us. We can all make a difference. Together, we can solve this problem.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Jill is looking for her notes as she prepares to come forward, and yeah, it'll just come from the heart. Thank you, Jill.
Good evening. What a joy to be here, and what an honor. I just want to say thank you. I look at all these amazing folks, and they've all played a role in my life. I think about Lake Avenue, and I was there after living in Mexico, and I was looking at this big church, and I thought, we have to have a meaningful connection between the church and the neighborhood. There's no command more important than to love your neighbor. And you can't do that unless you have a relationship. So how do we build a meaningful relationship? So we decided to have an after-school program. And it's called STARS. I was able to help found that and see it grow and beyond my capacity, and now others that have the skills to take it to the next level are leading that. But what I noticed at that time, a lot of the kids were dropping out of high school because they could not afford, their parents could not afford housing. They either had to work to help the family, or they had to babysit so the parents could work. And I thought, we have got to do something about this. I learned about affordable housing. It was the Agape Court. And there were openings. So I started moving families in there, and I thought, this is amazing stuff. They're only paying a third of their income, and they have time now for their children, and they can support them. They have a little after-school program in there. There was a strong sense of community. And so I thought, we need more of this. This is really good news. So I got involved. I started researching what churches are doing across the nation to actually build affordable housing. And that's how this book resulted, that's now being used on campuses around the country. I never would have thought that that could have ever happened. And so then I started getting involved in how do we make this happen locally. And so I joined an advocacy team that was connected to the Quakers. And I learned some really interesting things. The state of California has something called Article 34. Which essentially says that all affordable housing has to go through a public approval process. Now, we don't have to have this for market rate housing. Why affordable housing? But because of that, there's opportunity for people then to try to stop this affordable housing from happening. And so there's really no law that requires affordable housing. So it all has to be advocated for. So in order to address this crisis, we thought the first goals, this was clear back in the early 90s, or late 90s, that we would try to have inclusionary housing, where a percentage of all new housing would be set aside as affordable. And so we got people from all over the city involved. I was part of Leadership Pasadena, they were even involved. And we were trying to decide what percentage of all new housing should be affordable, 5%, 10%, 20%. And so it was finally landed that it would be 15%. So since 2001, when this policy was first passed, that one policy has produced 579 units that are affordable in all of these big buildings here in Pasadena. It's amazing to me. And that has not cost the city a cent. In fact, it has put money into the city coffers. There's this urban myth that people just buy out. Well, in reality, if they pay the in lieu fee instead of include the units, that has produced $26 million into our city's coffers, into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that has been leveraged to produce another 488 units. And many of those units are those permanent supportive housing units. So it's a policy that's very strong. We learned that this policy, after almost 20 years, is going to be updated. And so we thought, what can we do to make it even stronger? So we got a team together, we started researching, and it took us about a year. We looked at best practices all around the country of inclusionary policies and what makes them productive and work and what doesn't. And so we put together a proposal, we submitted that to the planning department of the city, we met with the city planners, we had lots of discussion, we come back and plan some more and do more research, then we meet again. And so this action, reflection, research methodology is what we do for all the policies that we're seeking to pass in the city, to try to get passed. And so it was very exciting. We learned that even at 25%, that it would still provide a 10 to 12% return for the developers. 25% of all new housing to be affordable. We were amazed when we did our research. And so we actually sat down with our city council members and we did the calculations in front of them. We wanted them to see that it's really possible. And that's when everything began to turn around. They said, oh gosh, well then maybe we can increase it to 20%. So we were thrilled to see that happen. We've actually put that committee to bed. We accomplished our goal. But the exciting thing is now we're supporting Alhambra that wants to do inclusionary. And we're going to Monrovia and they're also doing inclusionary. So I want to also mention another powerful policy that we've been working on really since 2003. And it's those little back houses, those cute little granny flats that our city kind of is famous for. And so everyone wants to live in one, you know, they're just a great little source. And so between 2003 and 2017, just guess how many were built in this city. We essentially had a moratorium. Only one was built legally. Now there's many that are, I'm sure, illegal. But we began to do research and we did a comparative analysis, and we were able to show that we identified how many were in the city. We found out that there's 540 that were legal in the city, built legally. And so we mapped those in the city of Pasadena and we began to research. We looked at traffic, we looked at parking, we looked at all the different factors, crime, and all these things we were hearing that it's going to bring all these things to our city if we have ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And so we were able to dispel those myths, and we continued our research, and we found that it was a little challenging. The culture of our city was not open to this resource where people could supply units within their own backyard. And so we started working with the state. And the state was amenable. Several of the city, or several of our state policymakers were also working on the same thing. And so we were thrilled to see that this year we finally have some really strong policy around ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Since 2017, a number of people have pulled permits, but only 8 people have actually completed them. This is not going to be something that will change the character of our city, but it's a definite opportunity. And if you're interested in being part of the team that's researching how to make these more affordable and to streamline the process, I'd love for you to meet with this wonderful woman right here who's taking a picture. Her name is Anne-Marie Molina, and she would love to have you on her team. I'm going to mention just 2 more teams that we have and how exciting it is to be part of this work. So it was the beginning of last year that God began stirring in my heart and thinking about all the property, not just in our backyards, but on church land. A lot of churches had excess land that was being underutilized. Well, at the same time, Phil Burns, who was on our inclusionary team, God was speaking to him about the same thing. So last summer we started this powerful team that is now helping churches walk through the whole process of what's the feasibility, what's possible, what can you do with this excess land, and what does zoning allow you to do, and what's it going to take for the church to discern and go through a prayerful process of discerning what their dreams are for their land and their church. And so it's been very exciting. That team already has 10 churches just in the city of Pasadena and a number of churches outside the city that are now looking and walking through that process. The goal is to help each church end up with an RFP, a request for proposals that they can then float with their own dreams and their own concerns and their own desires. Is it going to be homeless housing? Is it going to be senior housing, family housing? What does that church call to do, and how can they find the appropriate development partner to help them accomplish that goal? I'm going to mention just 2 more things. I'm not following my notes at all here. So I want to mention safe parking. So we have a very high percentage of people moving into their cars. They just can't afford rent anymore. It's tragic. And so we need to do something about that. And safe parking is a very important opportunity that we are not taking advantage of. We have empty parking lots at night. Many churches have that. Many organizations have that. We have a stellar program that's award-winning in Santa Barbara. We have another one in San Diego. We have people on our team going to learn how to learn from them. We have some safe parking programs in LA, but we do not yet have one safe parking program in all of San Gabriel Valley. We desperately need one. And so if you're interested in serving on that team and you really want to make sure that happens this year, we need to see this happen. We've been researching and working on this now for a year, and we're really ready to start moving forward. But we have 2 people from that team here. Here's Betty McWilliams, if you could raise your hand. And she is the executive director of Foothill Unity Center. And so I'm going to mention in my closing one of my most favorite models in the world of affordable housing, and I'll tell you why I love it so much. It's called a community land trust, and it's where you own the home but not the land, and so it's very affordable because you're not purchasing the land. And that's part of what makes housing so expensive is the land cost. And so back in the civil rights movement, they were getting civil rights, but not necessarily economic rights. And so there was a whole movement to start rethinking land and how we have land in common and think about land. And I love it because it fits right with Leviticus 25 and the whole real estate land use policies throughout the scriptures. And so there's now, after that model was birthed in Georgia, 50 years ago, we got to be at the 50-year celebration in Georgia last fall, me and Anthony. There's now over 250 of these all around the U.S. And there's a need to have one in this area. And we have a powerful team that's coming together and beginning to research. We've been going through coursework and really equipping ourselves on how do we bring this to our area. So I think I'm going to close by saying that it's been so amazing. I never dreamed I'd be doing this kind of work. I really didn't. I'm just blown away by it, quite frankly. And but I feel like I've learned a lot. Our whole team has learned a lot. And so now we are doing one-day housing justice institutes around the country. And we're helping people of faith understand how do you do this work. To me, it's really a prophetic work. The Old Testament, it really shows that all of the prophets were speaking to kings, to speaking to those who had the power to make decisions. And how do you do that? At the center of every one of those prophetic messages was the poor and the widow. Even Jesus, he went to the cross, but he also died because he was confronting the authorities. The authorities were essentially against what he stood for. He stood for, at the center of every one of the parables, he lifted the most vulnerable. It was children, it was someone who had a loved one who died. It was always the most vulnerable. So how do we keep that paradigm at our focus so that the most vulnerable are always part of our conversation and how we're going to bring more equality and more opportunity? It's a joy to be part of this. It blows me away that we have this privilege to serve those, and not just serve them, but with them. We see people join our teams who've experienced homelessness and are able to take the very story that they never dreamed would be a powerful story to create change, and now they're being transformed by being able to tell their own stories. So I thank you for this opportunity, and please talk to us. We have brochures. We can tell you more about what we're doing. Thank you.
Wow, I'm excited. Anybody else? Or am I the only one? So now, an important part of a community dialogue is you, your voice. We'd like you to bring your voice to the room. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a discussion. What ideas were stimulated? What resources? What did we not hear? Are there some pieces of the puzzle that didn't come forward? I mean, we heard about a lot of great information. I was busy taking notes. We got a videotape. We're going to put it on YouTube. And if you'd like to get the link, make sure you sign up so we got your email address, because we will send out a link so that you can go back and replay some of those great resources that you heard. So what comes forward for you? I remember our conversation, Shawn. We were at Lovebirds for lunch over there, and we were talking about this idea about taking motels, like the Ramada, for example, and converting it into transitional or emergency shelter housing. And then I understood that when that came up, that like 200 people showed up saying, "Oh no, not in my backyard. I don't want those people there." Right? And then I had a conversation with Anthony, which kind of suggested that maybe there was an opportunity to go and do some education in the community, to go and talk with people about what the idea was, who these people would be, because people had this idea like, I don't want those people, right, in my neighborhood. Well, those people are still sleeping in your neighborhood right now, And if we put them into housing, then of course they wouldn't be those homeless people. They would be people with community. And so I think there was an opportunity to maybe go out and talk to people in the community, to go to the pastor next door and talk to him and to his congregation about the idea. Does that resonate for anybody? Anybody have like ideas around that? Yes, would you please come down? So what our idea was to make a little line here for the mic, and then you can very easily speak into the microphone. This is Greg Thompson, our friend who I will let you know right now he's passionate about tiny houses and is kind of going to school of tiny houses, right, Greg?
Thank you, Pastor. Yes. Every bone of my 66-year-old body wants to come up here and be a poser, say, well, I've done this and I've done that. And you missed the best part. Yes, I do have a master's degree in social work. I've worked in men's prison, sex abuse treatment. My most recent gig was working with victims of Catholic priest abuse. But the truth is, the real truth is, if I really want to help folks, is that I tell you, technically I'm homeless. I'm a veteran. My last gig, long-term gigs, was with the VA, and I burned out. I said, I'll go back. Where's my professor in here that wears the nice hat? Is he gone? Right here. I said, I'll go study English and become a school teacher. They moved education on me in the last 40 years. I can't do that. So where I'm at right now is that I'm in the humble position of I want to build a tiny house, but I want to join with other people and do that. And I want us to learn to pay it forward, and that we network with people who are perhaps in a little better position to, I can come up with a hammer and a saw and all of that, but I don't have a backyard, so it certainly can't be in my backyard because I don't have a backyard. So I'm going to ask you to consider it being YIMBY instead of NIMBY. Yes, in my backyard. So my challenge would be that all of the churches actually use SMART goals and put numbers on this and say, well, we won't just talk about it and meet and pat each other on the back. We'll make commitments of maybe 3 per church per year, and we will, if not sponsor, at least provide the space for people to put a tiny home and not own the land. I gave up on this, quite frankly, until Reverend Michael called me yesterday, and I had found all the reasons that this is just so much bigger than a guy 66 years old that needs to get his shit together and get himself a house and let the world save itself. But there are just too many good people that I live next door to downtown that are struggling and suffering so much worse than I am, with addictions, with abuse, so much abuse. The drug dealers are coming in and out of the hotel that I live in, which is a VASH housing for veterans as well as Section 8 building. They're coming in and out of there with impunity. And the truth is, the staff there are streetwise. They know there's not enough commitment in the community to take this on. So the lady I date said, you will get yourself out of that building or you won't have a visitor. Well, there's my incentive. So I have a voucher called a HUD VASH voucher, and I went to meet with the locator today, and I have my eye on Highland Park because supposedly they are helping people build tiny homes, and I want to network with people. So I hope you guys will pool, find a warehouse somewhere, find a generator that you'll let move around from church members' backyard to backyard, and let the people that build the homes mentor the next people that build the homes. And gosh, like they say, and where people speak like I do, but unfortunately don't vote like I do, let's just get her done. And I really feel like that it can happen with all the heart that I see here today. I dodged drug addiction and all those sort of things, but I have my own personal challenges, or at 66 years old, I wouldn't live in government housing. And be looking for how to have a viable life at the end of my days with dignity. I believe I'll do it, but I believe I'll have to humble myself and not come up here as a poser, ask for help, ask to be a part of the solution, and depend on people that are ahead of where I am. So I'm just asking you to maybe put your ego on the shelf a little bit too. I've done that today. I'm asking you to say, well, yeah, I'm going to stand up to my next door neighbor when there's hammering going on at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they say, well, not in my neighbor's backyard. You say, yes, in your neighbor's backyard. So I really am grateful to everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And just as a point of information, there is a collective in Silver Lake, Echo Park, where they teach you how to do tiny houses, Greg? Is that what it is, Silver Lake?
It's Highland Park. You looked it up for us.
Highland Park, yeah. It's a collective. If you're interested in tiny houses, they actually build projects together. And then you get to learn, where to source materials, how to build them. You learn about the different permitting requirements and that sort of thing. So if that's something that really floats your boat and gets you interested, see us afterwards in the courtyard and we'll get you the information for there. And there was somebody who had a hand up. Yes, please come down and bring your voice into the room. This is our time for dialogue, for discussion, for sharing. Thank you. And please say your name.
Yeah, and I have a soft voice, so this is good. I'm Lenny Fleming. I live in Pasadena. I'm a retired nurse, and I've done a lot of street outreach in LA for homeless healthcare of Los Angeles. But what I want to talk about is, I think a huge part of what we have to do, and I really want ideas from everybody, is education. I did attend the community meeting about the Ramada Inn in East Pasadena. I don't know if any of you were there. It was terrifying. I've never been to a Trump rally, but it was exactly like that. There were people shouting. There were people saying homeless people are pedophiles. They'll come after your children. There's so much fear and misinformation and ignorance. And I think everyone here, we're sort of preaching to the choir. People who come to these gatherings want permanent supportive housing, but we can't get it done if everyone in Pasadena says, well, yes, I know this is important, but it's got to be somewhere else. Just not here, not near my street. So this is what I see as the problem, and I really want everybody to just be figuring this out, because I don't see how we can progress far if so many people in the city still see this as an impediment to their neighborhoods, instead of what I feel it would be is an enhancement to their neighborhoods. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being invited to the room. Indeed, that's an opportunity. Yes, please come down. And please say your name.
Hello everyone, my name is Anne-Marie and I'm part of GPOG. And although I do advocate for ADUs, what I wanted to tell you about tonight was something that my son said. He's 6 years old, and he said, Mommy, sometimes you get mad at President Trump, but he needs prayers too. And when he said that to me, it really struck me. Because, he goes to a Catholic school, we go to service every Sunday, I advocate, I am always around mostly like-minded people, but we really do have to pray for those people who aren't there yet. We know it's a problem, we know there's a crisis, there are people that just aren't there yet. And so what I had done at work, I was a banker, and people would say, oh, all those homeless people are drug dealers, and they're all addicted. And I have a friend who's a cop who tells me they don't want to go to shelters. And so I would start with saying, well, how do you feel about victims of domestic violence? Oh, well, of course. Of course. We have a prayer group, and we gather funds, and we sponsor women who are in shelters. Great. How about children? Would you feel comfortable housing children? Well, of course I would house children. How about the elderly? Yes, of course. What are you talking about? Of course the elderly. Veterans? Yes, veterans. Victims of abuse? Yes. And if you take them apart, there is no one, I don't care how fervent supporter or how, right side minded they are, there's no one that says that. No one says, no, I don't want to house children. But we only have one center in Los Angeles that houses families. Unless you are a single mother, you can't have your children with you without being in fear of them being taken from you. So when we talk to our neighbors that aren't as like-minded, or on the neighborhood app, or just somebody that we hear speaking, we say, I understand the way that you're thinking, but can I talk to you about the elderly? Can we at least house the elderly? And they'll always say yes. So meet the person where they're at. Get them over to our side. Get them there gently, with love, with compassion. They're just afraid. Okay? They're probably going to be more of a supporter than you think they are. They do donate to their church. They just don't want to see it. And nobody wants to see it, but it's there, it's around us. I do want to share that as a teenager, I was homeless from 14 to 16. And now as a 40-year-old woman, I have faced housing insecurity again because of my heart condition. And it is so frustrating to be back in this place. But it's only through the work and advocacy with my mentor here, Jill, that I have met so many people that have lifted me up. And I'm so excited to be here with you, and I always end up crying, and I hate that. But I had lunch today with another advocate, and she said, "Why is it so hard?" I said, "Well, saving the world isn't easy, you know? It's gonna be tough. But if we ignore those people who don't agree with us, we are going to lose out on allies. We need to meet them where they're at. We need to pray for them. We need to pray for our president. And we need to pray that the country gets past this moment. And I wish you all love and thank you for everything you do. Thank you."
Thank you. I think that, yes, please, come on down. Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody for what they're saying, and I just want to second all of that. I was at the Ramada Inn meeting that night. It was horrifying, and I think that we realized that evening that we've done as a sector and as a community a really bad job at messaging and the narrative around homelessness. That the simplified story we've told about homelessness has really betrayed the complexity of this issue. Drug addiction, mental illness, those are the two that always get kind of pulled out as being causes of homelessness, and I would pose that those are symptoms of bigger problems and accessibility issues and barriers. I brought some pages. It's called The Myths of Homelessness, and it covers, I think, the 6 or 7 most commonly thought of myths, and I would encourage people to grab one of those because it provides some real talking points. And it's those talking points that are the ammunition that is the backlash that we hear in those types of meetings. So one of the things we can do as a community is just educate ourselves as to, what really caused this, because homeless people didn't create homelessness. Society did. Broken systems, breakdowns in systems, that's what created homelessness, and that's what continues to perpetuate it. It's not the individual experiencing the problem. So I'd encourage you to grab one of those sheets. I have cards too. We're doing kind of community learning events, and I've done events with most of the people up here where we'll go out we'll do neighborhood, what do they call them? Neighborhood councils or neighborhood networks and things like that. We'll go into neighborhoods, we'll go into churches, businesses, and we'll talk about all of this stuff and give people the information that they need to properly arm themselves and then transmit that out into the community to get buy-in, because that's really what we need.
Thank you, Shawn.
Hi, so my name is Marsha Bradshaw, and I'm coming to you as having newly returned to Pasadena. I spent 20 years outside of California, so I've been around the country a bit. And I've worked at HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And I'm going to say, and the reason I'm speaking is because I'm going to say each one of us has a responsibility to get our friends and our community to lobby with all of the agencies, state, local, and federal agencies so that we get more and more money. When the community doesn't raise their voice, the folks that work inside of those government agencies can't do the work. And so I'm going to say to you that the time that I was there, I was outside as much as I was inside. So my responsibility was working with homelessness, working with reentry, working with all the issues. And what I found is the people on the inside didn't know, in the government agencies, didn't know how to get the voices of the community to really speak so that they could be demanded to do their job better. So I'd sit at a desk and folks would say, no, you can't pick up that telephone because they will ask you questions and they need you to do so-and-so. And I'd pick up the telephone anyway. Because my attitude was, if I couldn't speak to people that were being challenged, then how could I do my job? So I'm saying that to say that we have a responsibility, and that is to call the people that sit in those comfortable desks that get paid to do a job, to do their job. And we can do that. And talk about that president, we can do that if we stick together. So it really is, I've come to the community because I spoke so much while I was on the inside that they don't want me on the inside anymore. But I know how to read the rules, and I know how to manage, and I know how to write grants, and I know how to do the work. So I don't have to be on the inside. I know how the inside works. So now I'm on the outside. Let's do the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha.
Hi, I'm Gail Meltzer. I came here to support Rabbi Joshua and also to learn about this issue. I'm probably the person in the room who knows the least about it, so I hesitated to come up, but I did have something I wanted to share, and I hope you won't think this is too crazy, but it's just the way I think, and again, I hope this may be a little helpful. I was skimming the handout, which I'll take home and read, so again, I'll be much more informed than I was when I came in, but something struck me. The number of homeless in Pasadena is so shockingly low. As I was sitting there, I looked up what the homeless population in Los Angeles City, the city of Los Angeles is, and it's 36,000. So when we're talking about 600-ish people here, and I was looking at the assets, all the organizations that are working on this issue, which doesn't even include all the government agencies, I don't think, maybe it does, but I started to think about the monies allocated to this issue for Pasadena, and the assets of the talent and the skill of the staff and volunteers working on this. And I started thinking, so if we knew what the total amount of money is that's being allocated, and we divided it by 600 something, let's say it turns out that we're spending $100,000 a person to deal with homelessness. So why isn't this issue going away? That's a lot of money. So then I was thinking, okay, and again, here's where, this may be a good idea or not. What if you put the business leaders around the table for whom this issue is the most challenging to their vision of what this city should be. So it's not even to appeal to their heart. Who cares about their heart at this point? If you could get them to sit around the table and said to them, okay, you have $100,000, we're already, or whatever that figure is, we're already spending on each homeless person in this community, what would you as a business person, how would you allocate that money? And it would seem to me, if that's a question they've never been asked, and if they're not engaged, and if they're really not thinking about this, that would give them at least the chance to start thinking about it from a business perspective, and to maybe come up with some really creative, and again, if you're looking to find people who have connections, especially in the business community, who better to start with than business people, and to approach it not so much that they need to do that because it's the right thing to do, they need to do it because it will help their business. Totally selfish. And that you need their advice, you're not asking them for money. My background is in fundraising, and there's an adage that when you ask people for advice, you very often get money. When you ask them for money, you very often get advice. So in this case, you're asking business people for their advice. You're not asking them for anything other than to help the city, and I wrote this down because I loved what you said, to build the beloved community. They can help with that because it's in their interest to do it, not because, again, they'll be so touched by all the people that are affected. Of course, you hope they will be, but again, biblically, it'd be nice if they're touched, but what they need to do is help and come up with solutions.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lake Payne, and I am a business owner, so I'll speak from two different perspectives of business. I have a salon on Green Street, and we had a homeless issue, and one of the things that we did was we ended up having to get a gate so they weren't sleeping upstairs. And they were sleeping upstairs and urinating, so that was the largest problem. Now, there were ones that were sleeping across the street, which what I would do is when the morning time came, I said, hey, it's time for you guys to get up and maybe go to the beach or go on a hike because now the businesses are coming in. So I think, too, the way that you approach, and I would give them a broom, I would say, sweep up your area, and they would come back that evening, and in the morning time, again, the business is 9 o'clock, go to the beach, go hiking, and here's the broom, sweep up your area. So I think sometimes it's the way that you approach the homeless community, because it is a community. That's what we have to understand first and foremost. Then secondly, at Coldwell Banker, we've had a big issue with homelessness because there's a vacant building next to us. So they sleep there, and so we're paying $3,000 a month to have a security guard watch our building just overnight. And it's been a huge issue, and that issue is, a lot, you can tell that it's a lot of mental illness. So I think that, again, it depends on how you approach the person. So now we have to file a restraining order. It's turned into a larger issue than what it probably should be, just from them feeling like they've been violated. So I think when we talk about this homeless crisis, not only here in Pasadena, but Pasadena has a different homeless crisis than LA and other cities, and Hawaii is a completely different, situation. I've seen a gated community that was like a homeless community in Hawaii. So every homeless community is different. I think it's very important for us to ask the homeless community and business owners how we can create this to be a bridge for both parties. Because one thing that when someone came into my salon and they talked about what they wanted to do for the homeless community in regards to housing, I told them that, first of all, you have to think about the fact that these people have lived on the street and they like living on the street. So you can't create a large space. You can't have, gas stoves where they're likely to start fires, and you have to set it up to where it's more outdoor living. So they have to have the housing that people are talking about. You have to make it homeless friendly. You have to take in their lifestyle of the way that they like to live, because it's a way that they like to live as well. And that has to be in consideration. A fellow in the back, he said, unless we put a stop to the greed at the upper level, stop the enormous increase of rents followed by wage increases, the economy will always be stressed and produce more and more homelessness. So he wanted me to share that as well. But again, I guess my biggest question is, with the resources, is there mental illness resources in the housing program, drug programs, and also the job security as well? That's thank you.
We have one more comment. Yeah, just real quick. Okay, come on now. All right, yeah, please. Thank you.
It would have been nice if I could have stayed to my points. But I think the community in this forum has brought up basically what I wanted to share when I was speaking about dispelling myths and stigmatization. And one of the things that we do, and this is a wonderful opportunity, this is one opportunity to share our collective thoughts about this issue. But part of my program at Work for One-to-One is we create a safe space at the Central Library downtown LA. And this is where our volunteers and our program members actually meet every Saturday. We're committed to every Saturday to do this during the time. And in fact, this Saturday, our program volunteers and members will be going to MoCA, to the museum. We are committed to doing a tour of the LA County museums with our program volunteers and our participants. And this gives an opportunity for the volunteers in the community to learn from the individuals that are experiencing these different challenges and sort of dispel these stigmatization of who these people are, these people, who they are. I'm these people. I am actually a national provider now. I can be searched. I'm a peer supporter. I have 2 interns from USC. I have interns in Long Beach, where I live, from Cal State Long Beach, and I'm one of these people. I'm one of these people. These people these people, the other. And so my suggestion to our community is create more safe spaces, more opportunities for people of the community of both sides of their challenges. And I find that a lot of the volunteers have challenges, and a lot of our participants actually contribute to supporting our volunteers. This ratio, I love proportion because you have this colon in the middle, and both sides benefit from this relationship. So I wanted to speak more about the relationships and some of these challenges that the community have brought up. But these are the things that we can continue our conversations when we meet again.
Awesome. 10 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds. All right.
5 seconds. Really important, I think, because this is the myth that we hear more than any other. And I'll say that I've been working at the street level for 16 years with people who are homeless. I've met thousands of homeless people. I have yet to meet one that did not want to be in their own home. I've never met someone that wanted to live on a street as opposed to have their own bedroom, their own bathroom, their own kitchen. It's just a myth. It's not true. It's that we've never been able to offer people actual housing before. It's taken us 50 years to figure out that the solution to homelessness is a home.
Thank you, Shawn. Wow, this has really been amazing. My heart's just overflowing right now. We are the beloved community. It's us. It's us. We've come together because we know there's an answer to this. We know it. We feel it in our hearts. We may not know it from the intellectual part, but the heart knows. Because the heart brought us here tonight. I mean, you could be home watching Netflix, right? You know, but something in your heart said, no, I need to be there. There's something for me to hear, something for me to learn, something for me to remember. You know, that we are all one. You know, we're one people. We're a neighborhood. You know, you remember neighborhoods? I grew up in the neighborhood. There were these strange people called neighbors. They cared about each other, you know? I had one that looked out the window at me all day long. She said, I see what you're doing down there, and I'm going to tell it, you know? But she cared, right? And when I raked the leaves, my mom would say, go rake Mrs. DeBerry's leaves. Get her leaves. When I shoveled the snow, shovel her snow. Get her car cleaned off, you know? Because we cared about each other. And that's why we're here tonight. So this is just the beginning. Just the beginning. We have an evaluation sheet here. We'd love if you'd give us some feedback about what went well, what could go better, what we could do. If you have some suggestions for other speakers we could bring in. I wanted to bring in David from Safe and Just, you know, have him come maybe next time. And, you know, what can we do better? How can we keep this dialogue coming so that we can create more and more solutions, right? Because, like Shawn said, you know, nobody wants to be homeless. You know, when I first was homeless, I was homeless with a home. I had a home, I just couldn't go there. You know what I mean? I was stuck, right? And then later, I wished I had a home, right? But it was because of people like you in rooms like this, right? That today, it's a lot different. So we're creating something big. Out in the courtyard is refreshments. Marcia's going to pray us out and is also going to tell us something else important.
That's what I do with him. He's always doing this to me. What I wanted to say is, when we solve the problem in Pasadena, then we can go help and solve it in other communities. Because see, it is all about all of the communities solving this problem. So first Pasadena, because that's where he lived. And I'm going to say, I have to challenge myself to do that because I want to go out the entire world and just solve the problem. So I have to challenge myself to say Pasadena and then. So with that.
Would you thank our lovely presenters?
Presenters, you are thanked. The doctors,
Yes.
Lake Avenue,
Yes, indeed.
Wayfarers,
Yes.
Shawn Morrisey, Rabbi from Friends Indeed. And I have to, when people say names, I'm from New York, I don't know any names, so I have a hard time. So that was really me trying to gather the information because I don't hold on to it. So if we will just turn within, take a deep breath, and just honor the Most High, whoever you call that name, to be. I know in this moment that we are blessed, because we are truly a blessed community. And I ask that each person, as we leave, we honor ourselves for coming forth and recognizing that we are the answer to the prayer that we speak. So we take this time and this moment to just honor ourselves and honor all people, recognizing and knowing that we are one. And that oneness has an answer and a solution. And we have come forth to know that. So when we speak this word, we know that the word is answered. For we are being guided by the angels, guided by all those individuals that are unhoused. They are guiding us to our answer, to their answer, and to the answer. So I say yes, it is already done. I say thank you for each person that is here. And I say that when we meet again, we will have solutions. We will go forth and multiply this consciousness, and we will do the work around the world, because that's what the answer is. And this and so much more, I say thank you. And I know it is done, and we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Marcia. So I would recommend a minimum of 3 hugs. They're healthy. Right outside this door, there's water. We have snacks for you too. Some wonderful snacks. So make sure you shake some hands and greet some friends. Mayor Tony, thank you so much for replying.
Okay, so I can stop.